Hello everyone, in this video I'm going to discuss about the book Good to Great by the author Jim Collins, and this is a book you need to read if you want to build great businesses or let's say great organization, because any person can build a good business and a good organization, but to create something greater you need to do things in a certain way, and that certain way or method has been described in the book, and those few lessons are being described in a certain way, such as one concept has been shown in each of the lesson. And one of the lesson is that we need to have level 5 leaders. In other words, level 5 leadership is something where the leader has grown the organization, and the leader will also have influence over the organization even if he left the organization. For example, there will be a few cases where there is a level 5 leader, or let's say a strong leader, who has a way of doing things, and he turns the organization and builds growth and success. But when he left the organization has crumbled. But when it comes to level 5 leadership, even if the level 5 leader goes out of the situation and out of the organization, the company and organization will still perform up to its best potential, because level 5 leader has a way of creating successes who are as good as him. And there are certain concepts in the book, such as keeping right people on the bus and wrong people off the bus, because in many organizations people try to motivate others, but when there are right people they will motivate themselves. In other words, instead of wasting your time trying to motivate the people in the organization, you need to focus on keeping the right people in the organization and removing the wrong people of the organization. And in other words, even if you don't have a certain place for that person in the organization, if talent and a good character sees you see them, then you should instantly hire them and put them in your organization, because talent and the people are important. And now coming to the other point, even if the people are in the organization, they are not performing well, then the problem may be they are not seated at the right place. So instead of removing them when they are not performing and they are not producing results, if we have if you can try the way of keeping them and putting them in different ways and trying two to three different ways and seeing if things are working or not. By doing that, you can have the right people without losing them, and you can have the right people and you can take the wrong people off the bus. In other words, instead of having people to motivate, you need to create a culture where motivated people work together and strive together towards building something, because there are a certain situations where images, or let's say imagine there is a certain goal or a certain idea, and the market has been changed, and that certain goal and idea is not relevant, but we need to change. If the people have come because of the certain idea, then when the idea has been changed, then the process of doing things will be difficult. However, when the focus is on having the right people instead of having the right idea, even if the idea and the process and the direction changes in the future, due to having people, we can focus on growing together. In other words, instead of having a single leader, a single idea as a center, you need to create something where having multiple leaders and having multiple ideas will also make a way for the company and the organization to survive. And there is a certain concept mentioned in the book known as the hedgehog concept. And there are a few points from the book, such as you need to do the work you are passionate about doing. You need to do the work you're the best at doing. In other words, in the entire world, you need to become the best. You need to choose the work that you can do best when compared with everyone in the world. And another point is that you need to earn money and make profits. Even if the culture and the group is primary, having profits is necessary for the organization to survive. So, focus on these 3 points. You need to be the best in the world at something. You need to have profits and you need to be passionate about doing things. And there are other concepts in the book mentioned, such as we need to focus on having the right facts and we need to focus on seeing the raw picture instead of avoiding them, because unpleasant and some kind of a not so good things are hard to face. So instead of avoiding them, we need to face the reality and we need to make changes. And Good to Great has been written by Jim Collins and his 5 years research. And before writing the book, there is another book which Jim Collins has written, Built to Last, which has been focused on companies that are surviving for a long period of time, from decades, maybe even centuries. However, when writing Good to Great, the author did not consider the key points mentioned in the Built to Last book. Instead, the author started from scratch and created some kind of a system, or let's say having that method and way of doing things for an organization to go from being a good organization to being a great organization. When the organization is great, and we can focus on other things, such as having the organization built to last. In other words, Good to Great is a prequel to the Built to Last book, as mentioned by the author in the book. If you are the type of person who wants to build great companies or great organization, this book is for you, because in this book there are certain steps, or let's say the principles. If followed, we can focus and create and build great organization. So if you want to build great organization, you need to read this book. And that's all for this video, everyone. See you next time. Thank you.